A staircase whose sophisticated construction seemed all too perfect to be real. Was it built by a saint? Corpses from a New Mexico cemetery that for some reason refused to decay? And is the lost treasure of the Knights Templar real? These are unsolved historical mysteries experts can't explain. In Santa Fe, New Mexico, there's a staircase that's baffled people for over a century. The Loretto Chapel was built in 1878, but when it was finished, a problem came up. There was no way to access the choir loft, 22 feet above the main floor. Carpenters were called in, but all of them agreed that a staircase wouldn't fit in the small chapel without disrupting the space. So the sisters of the chapel, in a desperate bid, prayed to Saint Joseph, the patron saint of carpenters. And the story goes that on the 9th and final day of their prayers, a man showed up with nothing but a donkey and a toolbox. He went to work on the staircase, and months later, a beautiful spiral staircase was completed. But the carpenter just disappeared without a trace, never even taking payment. Locals even put out an ad in the paper looking for him, but he was never seen again. Some believe this mysterious carpenter was Saint Joseph himself, answering the sisters' prayers. And it's not just because he mysteriously disappeared. The staircase is unlike anything anyone had seen before. It has 2 full 360-degree turns and seemed to defy physics with no visible support. It's said to have been built entirely with wooden pegs, not nails. Experts still don't know what type of wood was used either. To this day, the identity of the builder and the methods used to construct it are still unsolved. In the town of San Bernardo, Colombia in 1957, a flood hit the local cemetery, forcing workers to move the bodies. But when they did, they found that many of the corpses were completely preserved, as though they'd been mummified naturally, despite having been buried for a long time. One of the workers immediately alerted the authorities, and when the bodies were examined, they found not just the corpses, but also the clothes that they were buried in were still in remarkably good condition. This wasn't the case for other graves in the area though, where bodies had decayed to bones. What's even stranger still is that the mummies didn't show any signs of embalming, which would be expected if they'd been intentionally preserved. Could the high altitude or the unique diet of the local people have had something to do with it? Well, sure, but that still doesn't explain why the clothes of the mummies hadn't decayed either. It's also odd that San Bernardo is the only town in the area where mummified remains were found. Today, some of these mummies are displayed in a museum, and they still haven't decayed even without any attempts to preserve them. One of England's most famous historical mysteries revolves around the death of 2 young princes, Edward V and Richard, who vanished while imprisoned in the Tower of London in 1483. The 2 boys were the sons of King Edward IV and were the next in line for the throne. But after their father's death, they were declared illegitimate by their uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, who became Richard III. The 2 princes were placed in the tower, and in the summer of 1483, they disappeared without a trace. Some believe they were killed, possibly on the orders of Richard III, to secure his claim to the throne. Some believe the princes were secretly taken out and buried in a hidden chamber in the tower. In 1674, bones were discovered near the tower, and though they were assumed to be the remains of the princes, modern analysis hasn't been able to prove this conclusively. The Knights Templar. These were a powerful medieval order of warrior monks, and their downfall in the early 14th century supposedly left behind one of the greatest lost treasures in history. In 1307, King Philip IV of France, deeply in debt to the Templars, ordered for their arrest. Accusing them of heresy and other charges, the knights were tormented into confession, and the order was officially disbanded by Pope Clement V. But it was said that the Templars had hid this vast amount of treasure, with gold and priceless relics. The most famous legend is that the treasure was hidden somewhere in Scotland, some say under Rosslyn Chapel, or buried deep beneath the ocean. There have been expeditions, but the treasure has, of course, never been found. It's still one of the greatest mysteries of the Middle Ages. So we often don't associate Sasquatch with history, and with supposed Bigfoot footage and reports flooding in all the time, it seems like such a modern phenomenon. But the creature has been part of Native American folklore for who knows how long. Before settlers even made their way west, stories of big hairy ape creatures had been passed down for centuries. But in the 1800s, newspapers started picking up on these strange reports coming from the frontier, especially in the Pacific Northwest. One newspaper even described the forests as being, quote, brimming with giant wild men and wood apes. The reports were pretty consistent. People said these creatures were big, walked upright, and had a terrible smell. One old account even referred to Bigfoot as the bad-smelling tree man. Around the same time, in 1865, a guy named George Gibbs started recording stories from Native American communities about the creatures. Some settlers brushed it off as myths, but by the early 1900s, there were official reports of Bigfoot sightings, and as we all know, Sasquatch's legend has only gotten bigger over time.
In our number 5 spot today, we have the Voynich manuscript. The Voynich manuscript was purchased by a Polish book dealer, Wilfrid Voynich, which is where it gets its name. He bought the mysterious manuscript from Italian Jesuits in 1912, and ever since then it has been the source of much speculation and the kryptonite of cryptographers everywhere. The manuscript is written in some sort of lost language, and no one has ever been able to figure out either which language it is or what the manuscript says. William Friedman, who is the chief cryptoanalyst in the United States Army, tried to decipher what this manuscript is saying for 30 years, and even he couldn't quite crack the code. It is said that the manuscript contains information about herbal remedies, therapeutic bathing, and astrology, but what if it holds all of the answers to all of the mysteries on this list? I guess we'll never know. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Somerton Man. The Somerton Man was an unidentified man who was found perished on the Somerton Park beach in South Australia in 1948. Since then, his case, who he is, and what happened to him has been a mystery plaguing authorities and all of those who are now invested in this case and its secrets. Public interest in the case arose in part due to how mysterious it was, but also because of the fact that the death occurred in a time of heightened international tension. The mysteries surrounding this one span more than just who this man was, however. Firstly, it is unclear how this man passed away. Was it some sort of undetectable poison? How could no one have any idea despite being able to examine the body? The next mystery is that a little secret note was found in his pocket that was torn from a book. The note in his pocket read, "To Mom should," which means is over or is finished. Talk about ominous, but is this note connected to the case or is it just a weird coincidence? We don't know. Earlier this year, the body of the Somerton Man was actually exhumed in order for DNA testing to be done, as we of course have much more technology and DNA databases than we did at the time of his burial. While we haven't had any updates yet, maybe this exhumation means that this one isn't impossible to solve? I guess we'll all just have to wait and see. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Roman dodecahedrons. These crazy things were of course named after their 12-sided shape, but that is mostly all we know for sure about them. They seem to have been made sometime between 100 and 300 CE, and they are small, hollow objects made out of copper alloy, and each of the 12 sides has a hole in it that leads to the hollow center. The first one of these was found in 1739, and since then about 116 similar ones have been found. They have been found in Wales, Hungary, Spain, and the most have been found in Germany and France. There has even been one found that has 20 sides. Here's the thing though, we really do not know what they were made or used for. Some assumptions are that they were candlestick holders because candle wax was found in 2 of them. Some think that they are dice, instruments used for measuring distances or size, a coin measuring device to determine counterfeits, and truly the list just goes on. I guess that was a long way of saying we have absolutely no idea. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Copper Scroll treasure. Who doesn't love a good old-fashioned treasure hunt? Well, probably the people who are searching for the Copper Scroll treasure because they simply cannot find it. The Copper Scroll is one of the Dead Sea Scrolls that was found in Cave 3 near Qumran, but it is by far the most unique. While the other scrolls were written on parchment or papyrus, this one was written on metal. And while the others were more a sort of literary work, this one features a list of 64 places that are said to be the hiding place of various items of silver and gold. The final point on the scrolls points to a duplicate document with more details, but that document has never been found. There are many theories as to where the treasure could be, where it came from, or if it even exists. Since it hasn't been found, it truly is tough to say. Or maybe it's already been found. Or maybe somewhere on some etheric plane, whoever made these scrolls is laughing at all of us trying to figure it out. Who knows? In our number 1 spot today we have the Nazca lines. The Nazca lines are a group of the most famous geoglyphs that exist in the world, and they are located in the Nazca Desert in southern Peru. They were created sometime between 500 BCE and 500 CE, and we have now found tons of them, but people think that there are even more. Here's the thing that's so mysterious about them though. We know about them because we have the technology to get a bird's eye view of the area. Whether it's through some sort of satellite, being in an airplane, or even flying a drone, we can see them and know they are there because we can see the gorgeous pictures in full view. But when they were created, that technology didn't exist, so how were they able to make these huge pictures without being able to see them from above? The designs measure between 400 to 1,100 meters across, and the group covers an area of 50 kilometers squared. It is believed that they may have been created in order for the deities in the sky to see, but that doesn't answer how, and to be honest, the reason as to why is still just a guess, as the honest answer does still remain a mystery as well. Despite how mysterious they sure are stunning to look at, and I think that's something we can all appreciate. It's cool that they were somehow naturally preserved, which allows us to now be amazed at what the past humans were capable of. Starting off at our number 10 spot, we have the tomb of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Cleopatra was the last queen of Egypt, and for over 2,000 years she has been quite an enigma. After losing a war and being captured by Roman Emperor Octavian, according to ancient writers, Cleopatra ended up taking her own life in 30 BCE by having a venomous snake called an asp bite her. She was then reportedly buried in a mausoleum with Antony, apparently with a ton of gold and riches, but no one has ever been able to find the location of this burial site. There are a ton of theories surrounding the potential location of the tomb, with some even suggesting that it may have already been found by grave robbers, who of course aren't about to disclose their findings. Many have searched areas in Alexandria, Egypt, where it is thought that her burial location would be, especially considering that this is where the palace once was, but Alexandria has seen a ton of coastal erosion over the years. This means that a lot of the land that once existed, including the land that the palace was located on, is now fully submerged in water. Experts believe it might be the largest possibility that we haven't found the tomb because it too is submerged. But there is always a chance that it is just really well hidden. At the end of the day, the location of the tomb, or I guess even the potential of its existence, remains a mystery. In our number 9 spot today we have Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper was an unidentified serial killer who was active mostly in the impoverished areas of the Whitechapel district of London in 1888. The crimes that have been attributed to the Ripper usually were against sex workers in the area, and the things that were done to them were absolutely horrible and horrifying. While it is believed that there were 11 crimes he committed, not all of them can be solidly connected to this one criminal for certain. There are 5, however, who are widely accepted as being his victims. These 5 are Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Because of some of the things that happened to 3 of the victims, it was believed that the perpetrator had some sort of anatomical or even surgical knowledge. When the connections between the crimes began to rise, numerous letters began to be received by both media outlets as well as Scotland Yard. The letters were of people claiming to be the killer, and the name Jack the Ripper actually originated from one of these letters. The story gained so much notoriety, and it has carried on all of these years, although the story told is usually a mix of historical research, folklore, and pseudo-history. Because of the length of time it's been, it truly is highly unlikely that we will ever find out the true identity of Jack the Ripper, but the far more important part is that we know the names of his victims so that their story may live on. In our number 8 spot today we have the works of old men. The works of old men are structures that were first observed from the air by a British pilot in 1972, and they are located near the Azraq Oasis in Jordan. There are hundreds of these wheel-like structures that are each over 80 feet wide, some even as large as 200 feet. These huge structures have been dated back so far that they just might be the oldest man-made creations that we have ever found, which is truly unbelievable. While this is all amazing, we have absolutely no idea what they are or why they were created. The theories range from things like sun tracking to cemeteries to some sort of spiritual relevance, but we really just are not sure. While things like this are incredible finds and it's amazing that some of the first man-made things still exist on our Earth, it is insane how we have no idea what they are or how to use them, and unfortunately, especially because of the fact that it's been thousands and thousands of years, it's most likely that the mysteries surrounding them are totally lost with the past. In our number 7 spot today we have Sacsayhuaman. I'm sure I said that wrong, so my apologies. This stone structure is located in Cuzco, Peru, and ever since its discovery, it has been baffling historians. It was first thought that the Incans built this to be a fortress, but it is now believed that it may have actually been used for ceremonies. Despite our best guesses as to what it could have been used for, the most mysterious thing about it is how it could have been built. The stones in this structure fit together so perfectly that they stay together without anything holding them in place, and they've done this for thousands of years. While the stones fit together so well, they're also all different shapes, which has led researchers to believe that they may have kind of made up the design as they went along with the building. It is so cool to think that while they may have just been improvising and going with the flow, we're now here talking about it as one of our greatest mysteries. Also, some of the stones themselves are pretty huge, so the fact that they were also able to move them at all is quite a feat. It is very likely we'll never know exactly what the process to build this structure was like because, well, no one who was there is still around today. In our number 6 spot today we have the Shroud of Turin. This shroud, also known as the Holy Shroud, is a linen cloth that bears the negative image of a man. If you haven't heard of it before, you might be sitting there wondering how this could possibly be mysterious, but that is because many people believe that this piece of fabric was the burial shroud that Jesus of Nazareth was wrapped in after his crucifixion. It was first mentioned in 1354, but as of recently, through things like carbon dating, it may be becoming more clear that this in fact was not the shroud of Jesus, but that still leaves us with the question, whose shroud was it? It clearly has the imprint of a man, and researchers say that the imprint features injuries that are consistent with the crucifixion process, but unfortunately in our history that wasn't necessarily an uncommon practice, so finding the answers to that question may be harder than we would like it to be. Or maybe he wasn't crucified at all, but we were just reading the signs wrong. At the end of the day, many people still view this as a religious item, and hey, maybe it actually is. I don't have the answers to this mystery, so who am I to tell you what's right?
In 1695, a merchant ship called the Stiuso left Dublin under Captain Owen Macy. The official story was that it was headed to Smyrna, in what's now Turkey, on a trading run, but the ship never came back. After 3 years with no word, everyone assumed it was gone and the crew was declared dead. But then, 5 years later, after it first left, the Stiuso suddenly returned to Dublin. To everyone's complete shock, the crew was all still alive, and they were carrying what a lot of people said looked a lot like pirate loot. Captain Macy explained that their ship had been seized by North African pirates, and that he and his men had been forced to sail under them, raiding merchant vessels for years. He claimed they finally managed to escape after overpowering their captors while they were intoxicated during a rowdy party, made off with all the treasure. It was a pretty incredible story, but there was also a rumor that the crew was running their own piracy operation that whole time, and that the Smyrna voyage was just a cover story. Dorothy Arnold was a young socialite from a rich New York family who disappeared in December of 1910. No one knows what happened to her. She just finished college and was trying to make it as a writer. On December 12th, she left her home to buy a dress for a party. She stopped at a few stores on Fifth Avenue, ran into a friend, seemed fine, said she was going to walk through Central Park, but she never showed up at the party. Weirdly, her family tried to keep things quiet at first, worried about bad press. They hired private detectives to search New York, but nothing turned up. Eventually, her father went public and offered a $1,000 reward, but still nothing. Of course, there are endless possibilities here, right? Was she killed in Central Park? Was she kidnapped? Did she take her own life? Could she have run off with a man she was secretly seeing? She did have a complicated relationship with a guy named George Griscom, but after months of dead ends, the police gave up, and Dorothy Arnold's disappearance is still one of New York's most infamous historical missing persons cases. Keyword there being historical. People, I think, go missing in New York all the time. In August of 1993, a group of 7 hikers set out into the Kamar-Daban Mountains in southern Siberia. Ludmila Korovina, an experienced guide, was leading the trip. They made good timing climbing up the peaks, but on August 4th, a sudden storm hit. They made camp, but had a hard time getting a fire going. And the next day, things just got worse, horrifically worse. As they descended back down, one hiker at the back started screaming out of nowhere. He was foaming at the mouth, bleeding from the eyes and ears, and convulsing. Then he just went still. Korovina ran to help him, but moments later she collapsed with the same symptoms. And then others followed, thrashing and clawing at themselves, tearing off their own clothes. Some began bashing their heads against rocks. Only one hiker, Valentina Otachenko, managed to escape, setting up a shelter for the night before making her way down the mountain. Autopsies on the hikers listed hypothermia as the main cause, though Korovina died of a heart attack. But was hypothermia really case here? Some think it was altitude sickness, or hypothermia combined with hallucinations. Maybe they'd come into contact with some sort of toxin or nerve agent, poisonous mushrooms. Over 30 years later, though, no one really knows what made 6 healthy hikers collapse and die so violently in the Siberian wilderness. The Vikings settled in Greenland around the 10th century. About 500 years later, though, they disappeared. Nothing violent appeared to have happened, and nothing was taken. Maybe the winters got too brutal. Crops maybe failed. Some think a plague in Iceland and Norway forced them to leave, but that was it. Word would have gotten back home, but it didn't. And this isn't the only time a Viking settlement has disappeared. Way before Columbus, they set up a settlement in Newfoundland, Canada. Archaeologists found it in the 60s. It's the only confirmed Viking site in North America. But again, it didn't last. For whatever reason, they left, and unless we ever invent the time machine, we'll never really know what happened. In September of 1890, Louis Le Prince, a French artist and the inventor often called the father of the motion picture camera, disappeared without a trace. He was planning a trip to the US to show off his invention and join his family. On the 16th of September, he was supposed to catch a train to Paris, but he never showed up. His luggage vanished as well, and after that, no one ever saw him again. The French police, Scotland Yard, and his family searched everywhere, but he was nowhere to be found. He was officially declared dead 7 years later. Over the years, there have been theories. He was about to patent his projector in the UK, and people have speculated that Thomas Edison or his allies might have had a hand in taking him out. Maybe he chose to vanish. Did he owe someone money? In 1890, there was also a drowned man found in the Seine River in France who looked a lot like him. But even after Le Prince vanished, the mystery didn't let up. His son spent years trying to get the world to recognize that his dad had basically invented the movie camera first, but he died at just 29 years old. The official cause of death was that he'd taken his own life, but some people didn't buy that explanation. He'd been so adamant about finding his father and so determined to make his legacy known, it seemed out of place for him to just end it all. Between 1485 and 1551, England was hit by one of the most bizarre and terrifying diseases in history, called sweating sickness, or the sweats. Unlike the Black Death or other plagues, this one showed up really suddenly, it hit hard, and then it just disappeared as quickly as it showed up. People would go to bed feeling fine, and they'd be dead within a single day. The symptoms started with chills, dizziness, and intense aches, then suddenly shifted to this overwhelming, unstoppable sweat. Victims would also have rapid heartbeats, burning heat, and extreme exhaustion. And one attack didn't necessarily make survivors immune. Some people got hit multiple times before it finally killed them. What's really weird is who it hit as well. Most medieval diseases didn't spare children or the elderly, but the sweats seemed to solely target adults, especially men in their 30s and 40s. And it didn't stick to cities. Rural towns were hit just as hard. No one knows what caused it. Some blame bad water, others think it came from animals. Theories come and go, but luckily, the disease vanished after 1551. The SS Watertown was an oil tanker sailing out of California in 1924, hauling fuel toward the Panama Canal, and then on to New Orleans and New York. One day, 2 crew members, James Courtney and Michael Meehan, went down into a cargo tank to clean it. They didn't come back. Their deaths were ruled accidental. The next day, they were buried at sea. But that's not where the story ends. Crew members started seeing their faces bobbing in the water off the ship's side. multiple people reported the same sightings over several days. When the ship reached New Orleans, the company that owned the water town suggested the captain try to photograph these apparitions, and he did. Out of 6 photos, 5 came back blank, but 1 seemed to show the faces of Courtney and Meehan, clear enough to be recognized by the people who've known them. That photo has become one of the most famous ghost photographs ever captured. Is the photo genuine though? Are these really the ghosts of those 2 sailors? Is it just a case of pareidolia, or is it one of those early spirit photography stunts? The original negative is gone, unfortunately, so we'll probably never know. Back in 1809, during the Napoleonic Wars, a British diplomat named Benjamin Bathurst just vanished. He was only 25, the son of the Bishop of Norwich, and he was traveling through Prussia with a courier under fake names to avoid attention. On November 25th, the 2 of them stopped in a little town called Parleburg. They ate at an inn called the White Swan, and Benjamin spent a few hours writing before they got word their horses were ready. Around 9 p.m., Bathurst walked out to head to the carriage, but when his courier showed up just minutes later, Benjamin was gone. He wasn't in the carriage, he wasn't at the inn, didn't seem like he was anywhere. He ended up finding Bathurst's expensive fur coat stashed in an outhouse, and later his pants tossed in the woods, but Bathurst himself never found. While everyone knows the story of Jack the Ripper, there was another string of cases happening around the exact same time in London that don't get talked about nearly as much: the Thames torso cases. I guess Jack the Ripper just has a bit more of a ring to it. It's hard not to talk about these cases without going into the gruesome details as well. Between 1887 and 1889, 4 different women's remains were discovered in and around the River Thames, and to this day, nobody knows who is behind it. First case is known as the Rainham Mystery. In May of 1887, a lighterman pulling a sack from the Thames found what turned out to be a torso. And over the next few weeks, more parts of the same woman turned up in different spots around London's waterways, but her head was never found. And there were no leads on who was responsible. The doctor who examined her, though, said whoever did it clearly knew their way around anatomy. Then there was the Whitehall mystery in 1888. When parts of another woman were found in different locations, including inside the construction site for the new Scotland Yard headquarters. This was around the same time the Ripper was active, so some thought the 2 were connected, but the methods here were very different. In 1889, Elizabeth Jackson, a homeless woman, was identified as the victim in a 3rd case after her remains were discovered at multiple sites along the Thames. In that same year, a headless torso was left beneath a railway arch in Whitechapel. That was the last known victim, but the so-called torso killer and most of the victims were never identified. Where are the bones of the Peking Man? In 1923, scientists made a groundbreaking discovery in a cave near Beijing: the fossilized bones of a new hominin species known as Peking Man, a subspecies of Homo erectus. It was the first real physical evidence of early human presence in China. The bones were estimated to be between 250 to 500,000 years old. There were 5 complete skulls, various other bones, but during World War II, China was invaded by Japan, and in 1941, during all this chaos, the bones disappeared. One story goes that there was an attempt to ship the Peking Man fossils to the United States, like to keep them safe, but they were lost at sea when the ship carrying them sank. Others speculate they might still be buried somewhere in China, though.
Next up today on our list, we have the Pollock sisters. So believe it or not, but over a quarter of Americans subscribe to the idea of reincarnation. While science might scoff at the notion, sometimes real life throws us mysteries so bizarre that even the most skeptical minds can't help but scratch their heads. Enter the story of the Pollock sisters. In 1957, tragedy struck the Pollock family in England when their 2 daughters, Joanna and Jacqueline, perished in a car accident. A year later, a miracle, or perhaps something spookier, occurred when Mrs. Pollock gave birth to twins, Jillian and Jennifer. As the twins grew old enough to talk, things got strange. They started asking for their past sisters' toys, recognizing landmarks their sisters would have known, like a specific school, or even freaking out around idling cars, once yelling, "That car is coming to get us." Could you just imagine your kid just screaming that? No, horrible. Sorry, that just got me. These spooky occurrences faded as the girls turned 5, and they went on to live normal lives, but the story wouldn't stay buried. It reached Dr. Ian Stiuso, Stevenson, a psychologist fascinated by reincarnation. After investigating thousands of cases, Dr. Stevenson documented 14 that he deemed credible, including the Pollock sisters. So if you're looking for a good paranormal shiver, this true story and the many unsolved science mysteries out there might just do the trick.
The Plain of Jars. So in northern Laos is a mysterious archaeological site called the Plain of Jars. It's thousands of massive stone jars, some towering up to 10 feet tall and just weighing tons. They're covered in lichen and carved from sandstone. The big question though is, what were these things used for? There are legends that giants once used these jars as wine glasses. As for why they were actually crafted though, some archaeologists think they were possibly used for burial practices. Others think they could have been used as storage vessels or in ancient rituals and ceremonies, but those are just ideas. We don't even really know about the civilization that created them, because you see, the jars date back as far as 1240 BC, making them much older than all the human remains found nearby. It's also really tough to study these ancient artifacts because of all the unexploded munitions from the Vietnam War in the surrounding area.
Next on our list today we have Amy Robsart. Amy Robsart, the first wife of Queen Elizabeth I's favorite, Robert Dudley, wasn't known for a life of royal luxury. Stuck in the countryside while her ambitious husband climbed the court ladder, she was more likely to be found managing their estate than attending glamorous events. Then, in 1560, tragedy struck. Amy was found dead at the foot of a staircase in her residence, Cumnor Place. Here's the real kicker. The cause of death? A broken neck. Officially, it was ruled an accident. Tumble down the stairs. But whispers of foul play swirled like smoke. Was it a tragic misstep or something more sinister? The timing was very suspicious, with Amy's death conveniently removing a roadblock to Robert's potential marriage to the Queen. The lack of proper investigation and Robert's hasty return to court after the incident only fueled the rumors. Did Amy fall, or was she pushed? These questions surrounding her death continue to be a historical mystery, a question mark in the story of Elizabeth I's reign.
Alright, I had to get at least one cryptid on the list. We got the Monkey Man of New Delhi. Now, this happened in very recent history, but it's pretty interesting as a cryptid case because there were so many reports. In May of 2001 in New Delhi, all these reports started coming in about a strange creature known as the Monkey Man. He would attack people at night. It was most commonly described as being a monkey-like creature, hence the name, around 4 to 5 feet tall, wearing a metal helmet, and it had claws. It was also said to have glowing red eyes. And even weirder, some people would say it even wore roller skates. It was also said to be capable of leaping from building to building. Also, it's just really weird. That's a real interesting mix of items and appearances. Monkey, roller skates, but also jumps, has claws. Over 350 sightings were reported, and around 60 resulted in very real injuries. This wasn't just some big ape creature off in the distance in the woods, minding its own business. This thing was attacking people, but there were also accidents. There were reports of people falling from buildings or down stairwells while frantically trying to escape from the thing. But eventually sightings died down, but the Monkey Man was never caught. Was it an actual half man, half monkey monster, or was it just a maniac in a costume? Probably the latter, but still, he was never caught.
Imagine a sleepy French village perched on a hilltop. Now sprinkle in a charismatic priest with a penchant for renovations, whispers of secret societies, and a dash of potential hidden riches. That's the recipe for the enduring mystery of the René Le Chateau treasure. The story kicks off in the 19th century with the parish priest. He undertook extensive renovations on the village church, funded by sources that remain murky. These renovations included peculiar symbols and statues, fueling rumors of hidden messages and clues. Legends arose of the priest discovering lost Templar riches or uncovering secret documents related to the Holy Grail. Despite extensive searches, no definitive treasure has ever been found. Some believed the priest's renovations were simply financed by savvy investments or by selling religious relics, yet the allure of the hidden persists. The story has captivated treasure hunters, authors, and conspiracy theorists for over a century. So is there really a treasure in Rennes-le-Château? The answer, much like the village itself, remains shrouded in mystery.
We're starting off the list with the English sweating sickness. Gross. I've got sweating sickness. I'm so damp. This was a mysterious illness that spread across England a few different times during the Tudor period. Symptoms would be high fever with intense amounts of sweating. But what was really scary about this illness is that it would come on very suddenly, and within a couple hours you'd be dead, having just sweat to death. Outbreaks would happen sporadically between 1485 and 1551, and then that was just it. It's not because they found a cure. I mean, come on, have you ever read about medicine from back then? It just stopped being a thing for whatever reason. And what's also really strange about this sickness was that aside from one outbreak, the sickness only seemed to affect people who were native to England. Wealthy males seemed to be hit the hardest, and it mostly struck in rural populations rather than urban ones, like with most illnesses. The cause of the English sweating sickness is still unknown, and I kinda hope it stays that way, because the only real way we'd learn more about this would be if it came back.
The lead masks case. This case revolves around the mysterious deaths of two Brazilian electronic technicians, Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana, whose bodies were discovered on August 20th, 1966 on a remote hilltop near Rio de Janeiro. The scene was absolutely perplexing. The bodies were found side by side, dressed in formal suits, wearing lead eye masks, and covered in grass, with no apparent signs of struggle or trauma. Nearby authorities found an empty water bottle, wet towels, and a cryptic notebook containing instructions. The men, identified as Cruz and Vienna, had left their hometown days earlier, supposedly to purchase work materials. Witnesses reported seeing them behaving anxiously before they vanished. Despite extensive investigation, the cause of their deaths remains unknown. The case has sparked various theories, of course, including foul play, overdose linked to their involvement in, quote, scientific spiritualism, or even encounters with extraterrestrial beings. However, conclusive evidence has yet to be found, leaving the lead masks case an unsettling, unsolved mystery.
Where on earth is William Kidd's treasure? Historians have been asking that question for centuries. Any One Piece fans in the audience, you're gonna like this story. So William Kidd was born in 1654. He was a Scottish sailor turned privateer. At first he'd been employed by the British government to hunt pirates, but he soon turned pirate himself. In 1699, he was accused of piracy and was facing death by hanging. In an attempt to plead for his life, he sent a letter to the British government saying that he'd reveal the location of mass amounts of treasure that he'd plundered from various ships over the years, but they refused his offer and he was arrested and hanged. But word got out amongst other pirates that Kidd's treasure was buried somewhere, and hunts were launched. This was basically the real-life One Piece, and it still is, because till this day, the treasure's never been found. There have been some clues, though. In 2007, just off Catalina Island, the wreck of the Kadar Merchant was found. This was the ship that Kidd got in trouble for plundering, leading to his being labeled as a pirate. It was pretty amazing to find a ship that Captain Kidd himself had stolen and then abandoned. Unfortunately, though, they didn't find the treasure along with it.
Step back in time to 1901 in Montreal's swanky Golden Square. Imagine here a grand mansion home to the wealthy Redpath family. Then, a bombshell. Both socialite Ada Redpath and her son Clifford are found tragically deceased in their private chambers. The only sign of a struggle? A single, silent firearm. But here's the real head scratcher. The investigation vanished faster than a magician's rabbit. No official police probe, just a lightning quick inquiry held right there in the mansion. Within 48 hours, the Redpaths were buried, leaving whispers echoing in the empty halls. Was it a heartbreaking family tragedy, as the inquiry concluded, perhaps Clifford succumbing to a sudden episode, or was there a darker secret lurking beneath the surface? surface. The Redpath family's wealth and the cloak of secrecy surrounding the investigation fueled a firestorm of speculation that continues to burn even today. This real-life whodunit with a dash of high society Montreal remains a captivating puzzle that may never really be solved. Everyone knows the mystery of Stonehenge. How did ancient people move 40-ton stones across hundreds of miles? While the large sandstone blocks came from relatively nearby, the origin of the smaller blue stones remained a puzzle. Then, in 2011, geologists traced them back to the Preseli Hills in Wales. But it didn't end there. In 2019, a site was uncovered in Wales with similar-sized stones arranged in a similar circle, suggesting Stonehenge's builders dismantled an older monument and moved it across the country. It was like prehistoric recycling. Stonehenge wasn't just built, it was reimagined, rebuilt, and moved by people who clearly had a plan and astonishing engineer skills for 2500 BCE. For centuries, the Oracle of Delphi was said to speak prophecies from the gods. Visitors from around the world would come to ask questions, and the priestess would answer in a trance-like state. Historians long suspected it was a scam or poetic myth, but in the 1990s, geologists discovered the temple was built over intersecting fault lines that emitted ethylene gas. Ethylene is a sweet-smelling chemical that causes euphoria, confusion, and hallucinations in high doses. The descriptions from ancient texts, slurred speech, strange dancing, divine possession, these match exactly. The oracle wasn't a fraud or a fake, she was just incredibly high on naturally leaking gas from the earth itself. In the 10th century, Viking settlers created a thriving colony in Greenland. They built churches, raised livestock, and maintained trade with Europe. But by the 1400s, they were gone, leaving behind ruins and no clear explanation. For years, theories ranged from war with the Inuit to plague or sudden disappearance, but recent studies of ice core data and soil samples point to a more tragic end. A period known as the Little Ice Age drastically cooled the region, making farming impossible. Trade routes collapsed and they became isolated. Analysis of bones showed signs of malnutrition and a diet shift from livestock to marine life, indicating a desperate struggle. Eventually, they either died off or integrated with local Inuit communities. No great battle, just slow starvation, climate collapse, and abandonment. In 2004, archaeologists in York, England uncovered a Roman burial site containing over 80 skeletons, all of them headless. It looked like a mass execution, but forensic analysis painted a different picture. These men were tall, muscular, and showed signs of healed combat injuries, markers of elite gladiators. Some had exotic isotopes in their teeth, suggesting they came from places as far as North Africa and Eastern Europe, and, well, them losing their heads? Likely ceremonial, tied to death rituals or punishments within the gladiatorial system. They weren't victims of random violence, they were honored in a brutal sport where even death followed a code. The Voynich manuscript, a 600-year-old book filled with unrecognizable script and bizarre drawings, has stumped cryptographers for decades. Some claim it was alien, encrypted, or complete nonsense, but in 2019, a linguist cracked part of the puzzle by identifying the text as written in a rare Proto-Romance language using a now extinct shorthand. When interpreted through this lens, many pages appear to focus on herbal remedies, women's health, and astrology. While the theory is still debated, more of the manuscript has been translated than ever before, and it's looking less like alien gibberish and more like a medieval women's health manual written in an obscure dialect. It may not be fully solved, but the code is definitely cracking. For years, dozens of small bronze objects shaped like 12-sided dice with knobs at each corner baffled archaeologists. Known as Roman decadahedrons, they were found across Europe but never described in any surviving Roman texts. Were they religious relics, astronomical tools, alien artifacts? In 2022, a researcher in the Netherlands used 3D modeling and historical analysis to determine they likely served a practical purpose. knitting gloves. The different-sized holes helped size fingers accurately when knitting wool for Roman soldiers. This theory is supported by similar tools used later in Europe. From unsolvable mystery to ancient fashion tool, the Roman dodecahedrons are a perfect reminder that sometimes the weirdest mysteries have the simplest answers. When archaeologists unearthed a sealed royal tomb near the Valley of Kings in the 1880s, they didn't expect horror, but that's exactly what they got. A contorted, wide-eyed mummy with its mouth stuck in a scream. Unlike other carefully wrapped pharaohs, this corpse was hastily mummified and thrown into a plain wooden box. For over 100 years, no one knew who he was or what had happened. That changed in 2008 when DNA tests revealed he was Prince Pentuer, a traitorous son of Ramesses III. Historical scrolls confirmed he was involved in a failed coup and was likely forced to take his own life. The botched embalming? A punishment for his betrayal, denying him a peaceful afterlife. Turns out the scream was more than just a creepy accident. It was a mark of disgrace. According to ancient Greek historian Herodotus, a Persian army of 50,000 men was sent by King Cambyses II to conquer the Siwa oasis in Egypt. But they never arrived. Legend said the army was swallowed by a massive sandstorm, vanishing without a single trace. For centuries, skeptics called it folklore, until 2009, when two Italian archaeologists found scattered human bones, bronze weapons, and Persian artifacts buried deep beneath the Egyptian desert. These remains weren't just bones, they were broken by intense weathering, perfectly matching accounts of a sudden, violent sandstorm. It's now believed the army was indeed wiped out by a freak desert storm. What sounded like ancient exaggeration turned out to be a terrifyingly real natural disaster. Otzi the Iceman was discovered by accident in 1991 by hikers in the Alps, his body preserved for over 5,000 years in ice. At first, scientists thought he died of exposure while crossing the mountains, but over time the evidence started to tell a much darker story. CT scans revealed a flint arrowhead embedded in his shoulder, along with deep wounds on his hands and a fatal blow to the head. Pollen in his gut showed his exact route the final days of his life, and isotope analysis revealed a pattern of conflict. He hadn't been peacefully traveling, he'd been running. Otzi had likely been ambushed and had his life taken. It's one of the oldest known cases on Earth, and it's finally been solved using modern forensics. Seen from the sky, the Nazca lines in Peru are enormous geoglyphs of hummingbirds, monkeys, and geometric shapes stretching for miles. For decades, theories about their purpose, including alien runways, messages to the gods, and even ancient astronomy. But a breakthrough came in the 2010s when archaeologists discovered ceremonial pottery shards and footpaths leading to the geoglyphs. In 2019, a comprehensive study linked the lines to religious rituals aimed at bringing rain in a desert climate. The Nazca people created them as sacred pilgrimage routes, drawings meant to be walked, not seen from above. It wasn't about visitors from space, it was about survival and devotion in one of Earth's driest regions.
Number 5. Tomb of Cleopatra. Ancient writers claim that Cleopatra VII and her lover Mark Antony were buried together in a tomb after their deaths in 30 BC. The writer Plutarch wrote that the tomb was located near the Temple of Isis, an ancient Egyptian goddess, and was lofty and beautiful monument containing treasures made of gold, silver, emeralds, pearls, ebony, and ivory. But the location of the tomb remains a mystery. In 2010, Hazay Hawass, Egypt's former antiques minister, conducted excavations at a site near Alexandria which contained a number of tombs dating to the era when Cleopatra ruled Egypt. While many interesting archaeological discoveries were made, Cleopatra VII's tomb was not among them, he reported in a series of news releases. Archaeologists have noted that even if Cleopatra's tomb does survive to this day, it may have been heavily plundered and unidentifiable, so it seems like nobody will be finding that treasure anytime soon. Number 4. The Copper Scroll. The Copper Scroll is one of the most mysterious artifacts in history. It was discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1952 and is believed to be around 2,000 years old. The scroll consists of 2 copper sheets covered with a text written in ancient Hebrew script. It contains a list of 64 items or locations of hidden treasure, including gold and silver coins, sacramental vessels, and other valuable items. The scroll is not only remarkable because of its age, but also because it is the only known ancient text written on metal. This means that it has been preserved much better than other scrolls that have degraded over time. Now, despite its incredible age, many items on the list remain a mystery, and their locations have yet to be discovered. There have been many attempts to decipher the copper scroll, but no one has been able to make sense of it. Yet. Some experts believe that the scroll could provide valuable information about the history of Jewish people in the region at the time, while others think it's simply a hoax. Whatever the case, the Copper Scroll remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Number 3. Julius Caesar's son. One of the most enduring mysteries of the Roman Empire surrounds the existence of Julius Caesar's son. Some sources claim that he was adopted by Julius Caesar and named Caesarion, while others allege that he was the illegitimate child of the Roman leader and Cleopatra. Regardless of which version of the story is authentic, there's no denying that the case of Caesarion has yet to be solved. The only evidence of his existence comes from ancient texts, which refer to him as both as an adopted son of Caesar and an illegitimate child of Cleopatra. However, none of these texts can be verified, leaving its true origin unknown. It's also unclear what became of him after Julius Caesar's assassination in 44 BC, leaving some historians to speculate that he may have had his life ended or gone into hiding. While the mystery of Caesarion may never be solved, it does make for an exciting tale to contemplate. Did he exist? What became of him? Was he ever genuinely recognized as Julius Caesar's son? These questions remain unanswered, but perhaps the truth about Caesarion will come to light one day. Number 2. The Sumerians. The Sumer are the earliest known civilization that was located in the historical region of southern Mesopotamia, aka current Iraq. Sumerians were the first to use a written language, they invented a number system, the first wheeled vehicles, sun-dried bricks, and irrigation for farming. But historians are not completely sure where they came from. They had an isolated language, meaning that it was not related to surrounding languages, so that makes it difficult to trace their journey. They suggest that the Sumerians may have come from North Africa, while according to some other data, they might have originated in Caucasus. There are even more theories, and it just shows how mysterious the origins of the people who created the first human civilization are. And coming in at number 1 is the Money Pit. The Oak Island Money Pit is a mysterious site on Nova Scotia's Oak Island that has been rumored to contain buried treasure. The legend of the Money Pit dates back to 1795, when 3 boys discovered a depression on the island and found a layer of flagstones beneath. What began as an innocent exploration quickly became a massive treasure hunt, with hundreds of searchers excavating the island for over 200 years. The Money Pit has been dug down more than 200 feet, but many believe that the treasure lies much more deep, like as deep as 500 feet. As the diggers have gone deeper, they've encountered multiple booby traps, such as flood tunnels and stone plugs designed to protect whatever lies at the bottom. So far, the only artifacts that have been discovered are 2 links of a gold chain and a stone inscribed with the letters VI and C, which some believe stands for Viva Cristo. Despite these discoveries, the mystery of the Money Pit remains unsolved. Many believe it contains a great treasure, while others think it may be a hoax. While hundreds of theories have been proposed, from hidden pirate booty to ancient Native American artifacts, no one knows what lies at the bottom of Oak Island Money Pit, and I'm not sure we ever will. Number 10. The Wow Signal. In 1977, astronomer Jerry Ellman was researching at The Ohio State University when an incredible and unexplainable radio signal was detected using the school's Big Ear telescope. In those days, information was run through what was called an IBM 1130 mainframe computer before being printed on paper and then studied by hand. Upon reviewing the findings, Jerry came across something he had never seen before. There, in a vertical column, was the sequence 6EQUJ5. Jerry was amazed and immediately circled the sequence and wrote "Wow" right beside it. Hence the name. The signal they picked up had come from nearly 220 million light years away, and there was no explanation as to how or why a radio signal could be detected from that distance. It immediately became a sensation in both the science community and the rest of the world, and was used to support the search for alien life in the universe. Jerry himself says he's convinced that it certainly has the potential to be the first signal from extraterrestrial intelligence, and I agree. Number 9. Einstein's last words. birds. Albert Einstein was a German-born theoretical physicist, widely acknowledged to be one of the greatest and most influential physicists of all time. Einstein is best known for developing the theory of relativity, but he also made important contributions to the development of theory of quantum mechanics. Einstein passed away at Princeton Hospital, New Jersey on April 18, 1955. He died because of internal bleeding caused by a rupture of an abdominal aortic aneurysm. Einstein knew he was going to die, as he refused treatment because he didn't believe in prolonging life artificially. There was a nurse present at the time of Einstein's death, and she actually heard him mutter something, but she didn't know exactly what it was, as she couldn't understand German. Maybe Einstein revealed an incredibly important realization, or he just said goodbye to the world in his native language. But guess what? We'll never know, and this will be one mystery that can't be solved. Number 8. Genghis Khan Burial Site. Genghis Khan was the founder and first Khagan of the Mongol Empire, which later became the largest adjoining land empire in history. Having spent the majority of his life uniting the Mongol tribes, he launched a series of military campaigns which conquered large parts of China and Central Asia. He achieved everything he wanted, but the emperor died during the fall of Yinchuan, which is now part of China. The reasons for his death are unclear, as well as the place he was buried in. Researchers think it might be somewhere in the vicinity of the Mongol sacred mountain of Burkhan Khaldun in current northeastern Mongolia. According to legend, he asked to be buried without markings or any sign, and after he died, his body was returned to present-day Mongolia. Marco Polo wrote that even by the 13th century, the Mongols did not know the location of the tomb. Another folkloric legend says that a river was diverted over his grave to make it impossible to find. Other tales state that his grave was stamped over by many horses, that trees were planted over the site, and that the permafrost also played its part in the hiding of the burial site, but to this day, we still don't know where it is. Number 7. City of Atlantis. Writing in the 4th century BC, the Greek philosopher Plato told a story of a land named Atlantis that existed in the Atlantic Ocean and supposedly conquered much of Europe and Africa in prehistoric times. In the story, the prehistoric Athenians strike back against Atlantis in a conflict that ends with Atlantis vanishing beneath the waves. While no serious scholar believes that the story is literally true, they have speculated that the legend could have been inspired in part by real events that happened in Greek history. Many believe that the lost city of Atlantis story was an allegory created by Plato to illustrate the dangers of hubris and greed. In contrast, others point to evidence of ancient cultures in the Mediterranean that could have been connected to Atlantis. This story has captivated people's imaginations for centuries, with theories about its location ranging from a sunken island near the Azores to civilization in Antarctica. Despite extensive research and exploration, the truth behind Atlantis remains unknown, and the mystery may never be solved. Whatever the truth, the lost city of Atlantis will likely remain a mystery for generations. Number 6. Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper was an unidentified serial killer active in and around the Whitechapel district of London, England in the autumn of 1888. Attacks ascribed to Jack the Ripper typically involved a female night worker who lived in and worked in the East End of London. Their throats were cut prior to abdominal mutilations, and the removal of internal organs from the last 3 of the victims led to speculation that Jack had some anatomical or surgical knowledge. Rumors that the deaths were connected intensified in September and October 1888, and numerous letters were received by media outlets and Scotland Yard from individuals claiming to be responsible. The From Hell letter received by George Lusk of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee was allegedly sent from Jack the Ripper, and it came with a half-preserved human kidney, reportedly taken from one of the victims. Now, most of the reports done by the police were destroyed during World War II, but what from remains, we are able to learn that more than 2,000 people were interviewed, upwards of 300 people were investigated, and 80 people were detained. However, there was no conclusion to who the killer was. But to ease your minds, Jack the Ripper has to be dead now, so no worrying about him.
Tarrare was a Frenchman in the late 1700s who had an extremely unusual condition, an insatiable hunger. And not only would he eat mass amounts of food, he'd eat pretty much anything he could fit into his mouth. He'd go as far as eating live animals like cats, dogs, and eels. One story goes that he even ate a snake after peeling off its skin. His eating habits were so bizarre that people started taking notice, and he became this kind of one-man circus act. He'd perform in the town square, and he'd eat just bizarre things like pocket watches, corks, live animals, all in front of shocked and terrified crowds. Doctors had no idea what was going on with this guy. They figured he had some sort of stomach issue that prevented him from feeling full. As for what that was though, nobody knew. Eventually he was hospitalized, and that's where things got deeply disturbing. At one point, nurses found him eating parts of corpses. Terrer died at just 26 after experiencing continuous exudative diarrhea. Surgeons decided to do an autopsy, and apparently his insides were just a complete mess. Can't imagine why. Next up is the mystery of the 9th Roman Legion. Around 100 to 190 CE, the Roman Empire was set on conquering Caledonia, now known as Scotland. To do that, they sent the 9th Legion, a military unit that had already proven itself in battle across the empire. The soldiers were never seen again. At some point, they just disappeared. There's no official record of what happened to them, and considering how meticulous the Romans were about keeping track of their military, that is pretty strange. Some people think the entire legion was wiped out in such a humiliating way that no one wanted to document it. Disappearance is even rumored to be one of the main reasons why Hadrian's Wall was built, as a defensive measure against whatever had taken out that 9th Legion. In 1885, a man named Guillermo Farini, also known as William Leonard Hunt, made a strange claim, saying he'd found this mysterious city in the Kalahari Desert. He reported his discovery to both the Berlin Geographical Society and the Royal Geographical Society of Great Britain. He even published a book that year describing what he found. In it, he described strange rock formations that he believed were the ruins of some ancient city. Farini figured this city was thousands of years old, though he couldn't find any inscriptions or clear evidence to back that up. Over time, though, rumors spread about this supposed lost city, even among local indigenous people who claimed that they hadn't been the ones who built it though. Other explorers and historians like Gustave Prelude went looking for the city, claiming the locals could lead them to the ruins, but after more searches, nothing concrete came up. Some even claimed to have seen quarries or shipwrecks in the middle of the desert, but these stories never panned out. Professor A.J. Clement tested Farini's theory and concluded that Farini probably didn't even reach the Kalahari Desert. Instead, he likely found some natural rock formations that, over time, looked man-made when they were eroded. The search for the city continues to be a mystery, but many now consider it more of a myth. In 1909, the SS Waratah, a large passenger and cargo steamship that operated between Europe and Australia, disappeared without a trace up the coast of South Africa. It was last seen near the Cape of Good Hope, but after that it vanished completely. No distress signals were sent and no wreckage was ever found. The ship had been in service for just a short time, and there were no signs of any problems before it disappeared. Some people think it sank during a storm, but there's no real proof of that. Eerily though, the Waratah did have a bit of a reputation for strange incidents on board. Some theories say it might have been taken by pirates or hit by a huge wave, but no one knows for sure, and to this day, the Waratah's disappearance is still unsolved. The Beale ciphers are a set of 3 mysterious documents believed to hold the key to a hidden treasure buried by a man named Thomas J. Beale in the 1820s. According to the story, Beale and a group of adventurers discovered a large treasure of gold, silver, and jewels out in the west, and they supposedly buried it somewhere in Bedford County, Virginia. Supposedly, if you can crack the ciphers, you can find the treasure. The first cipher is said to describe the exact location of the treasure. The second supposedly lists the contents of the treasure, and the third contains the names and contact details of the heirs. Beale left the ciphers with his friend Robert Morris, promising to return with the key to decode them, but Beale never showed up again. Morris shared the ciphers with the public, hoping someone could figure them out, and to date, only the second cipher has been partially decoded. Why anyone would bother with the second and third cipher is beyond me though. Just tell me where it is, and then I will go and get it. I don't need a list of items if the treasure is right in front of me, and I most definitely do not need the contact info of the people it belongs to, because it will all be coming home with me.